Okay, the next, this afternoon session will touch on this series of suttas that dwell on these two topics, as mentioned, the mirror of the teaching or qualities of the Dhamma, as well as the Pancha Nivarana or the five hindrances. The various excerpts I provide will mention these suttas. This page only summarizes the suttas I have quoted in the following slides. You will get all these in the notes. Okay, as mentioned, this afternoon's session will cover two topics, the qualities of the Dhamma and the five hindrances. Now, the Buddha taught the Dhamma solely out of compassion for sentient beings who suffer in the cycle of birth and death. The Dhamma is therefore taught without any selfish motives. It is well taught and completely good. It is by nature pure and bright, like the light that destroys the darkness of ignorance. When the Dhamma is studied and practiced, it brings many benefits, now and in the future. The Dhamma is a teaching about the nature of life. This extract is from an article in BuddhaNet, as the URL is given. Now, in the particular sutta, the Arya Pariyesana Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 26, the Buddha mentioned, the Exalted One surveyed the world with his Buddha vision. He saw beings with little and much dust in their eyes. Now, little and much dust. Now, dust, of course, of scale or our visions. Little means we don't have a lot of dust, which means we can see clearer. And much dust means we are, shall we say, almost blinded, extremely dark, something dark covering our eyes. So whatever is in front of us, we may not even see it at all. So with keen and dull intellect, with good and bad characteristics, beings who are easy and difficult to be taught, and few others who, with fear, view evil and the life beyond. And he addressed the Brahma Sampati in the verse, thus, open to them are the doors to the deathless state. Let those who have ears repose confidence. Now, this particular passage or quote regarding the Brahma Sampati's chat or conversation with the Buddha just after the Buddha's enlightenment, very often authors view it as Brahma Sampati's invitation. I wouldn't call it an invitation. I would call it Brahma Sampati, asked the Buddha to survey the world. Because when the Buddha at first refused to teach, or rather declined to teach the Dhamma because he felt he was reviewing the nature of Dhamma itself, which he found it was very, very difficult to understand for ordinary human beings. Whereas Brahma Sampati was coming from another angle. He was saying that there will be some people who may understand. And the Buddha surveyed the world with his Buddha vision, and he saw this. So after he saw that, even though the Dhamma is difficult to understand, but he saw beings with little dust or much dust in their eyes. So those with little dust got a possibility of understanding what the Buddha is talking about, and those with much dust or a lot of evil within them or bad characteristics, those people are the ones who, would not be able to understand what the Buddha is talking about. And what do you mean by open to them are the doors to the deathless state? Some people might ask, hey, the Buddha found deathlessness, but the Buddha himself passed away, so why are you talking about? Well, here the Buddha is referring to the state whereby as long as you are born, you must die because you have a body. The body has a certain amount of lifespan. And of course, depending on what you eat, the nature of your genetics and things that happen, there may be an earthquake, you fall into the hole, of course, you die. You can have bullock cart accidents, which is common in those days. And you can die because of that, and so on. There are many opportunities to die. But as long as you're born, death is certain. That's why the only thing we are uncertain about is that whether you can get enlightenment or not, but definitely death is certain. So what do you mean by the doors to the deathless? Well, The issue is when a person dies, like all of us who are not enlightened, those who are not enlightened, we still have ignorance in our minds. And because of that, when there is ignorance in our mind, our actions based on body, speech, and mind, we make karmic energies, and together with which are fertilizers, which fertilize our ignorance. And because of these two combinations, when we experience death, we are born again. So there is rebirth for those unenlightened beings like us. But in the case of the enlightened ones, the arahats, like the Buddha is also an arahat who has uprooted the 10 defilements. For them, this, when they realize it in this very life, when they pass away without ignorance in their mind. They may or may not have karma left in their bank as fertilizer, but they have no more ignorance. So ignorance is a very critical seed which pushes a person into rebirth. So since arahats do not have ignorance, they only have wisdom in their minds, they are not born again. Since they are not born, they will not in the future experience death, another death. We have been experiencing birth and death innumerable times, countless times. So the doors to the deathless is the key to not being born again. When you are not born again, you will never experience death. That is what we mean by the doors to the deathless. Whereas as long as you are alive, you must die because the body itself cannot last that long. This is the nature of existence. Now, does not only apply to living beings on earth, but it applies to all beings in the 31 planes of existence, whether you're in hell or in the highest Brahma states, where their lifespans are incalculable. They're so long, maybe even to the length of the universe itself. Okay, but they do die, and they're going up and down the ladder of the 31 planes of existence. So the Buddha's teaching is telling you how to achieve deathless state. Now, in the mirror of the Dhamma, as mentioned, of course, the Buddha has taught this in many, many suttas. In here, I quoted from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, Digha Nikaya Sutta number 16. Parinibbana means the passing away of an enlightened one. The Mahaparinibbana means the great passing. Mahaparinibbana only refers to the Sammasambuddha, in this case, Gautama the Buddha. So here, an extract from the sutta. The sutta itself is very long. Extract. And what is that mirror of the teaching? Is when a noble disciple has experiential confidence in the Buddha. Now, what is experiential confidence? Confirmed confidence, verified faith. This one requires a deep understanding and practice and realization of the Dhamma, although not enlightened yet, but nevertheless, deep appreciation of this. Continuing, they have experiential confidence in the teaching. The Pali word for experiential confidence or confirmed confidence or verified faith, depending on the translation, is avecha pasadena. That's a very important Pali word. Not just mere intellectual understanding, it goes deeper than that. So what is this understanding? Well taught is the true teaching, which is the Dhamma itself, of the Blessed One. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo. Visible here and now, Sanditiko. Visible here and now because the teaching of the Buddha is not just unique to the Buddha, it is a natural law. The Buddha didn't invent or create this law. This Dhamma itself is a natural law. Dhamma, in a way, depending on the usage, Dhamma can also point to all the laws in the universe, whether we have studied in school or many of those we have yet to be discovered. But a portion of the Dhamma applies to birth, death, rebirth, and enlightenment. Okay, some parts of it. So well taught is the Dhamma of the Blessed One, visible here and now. Now, visible here and now is a very important aspect because when you do certain things, you will experience the results here and now. Some results appear later, some very, very, very much later, but some appear almost immediately within the next few hours or the next few days and so on. Now, akaliko. Akaliko, the word is kali, which means time. Akali, which means no time. So it means timeless. So the Dhamma is timeless. An example I always use is, since Dhamma is talking about the laws of the universe, and this teaching, which is part of the laws of the universe, is akin to something like the one we are more familiar is gravity. Nobody dare to say that the gravity has an expiration date because of somebody's teaching. So the Buddha is describing a law of the universe. Okay, so this Dhamma itself is timeless, not involved with time. Inviting one to come and see. Ehi pasiko. Ehi means come, come, or inviting. Pasiko is to see. Not just see with the eye, see with insight, see with through realization. So inviting one to attain realization is another way of translating it. Or some people might say inviting investigation. Pasiko, to understand something, you need to investigate. You need to discern it. You need to investigate it. You need to tear it apart to find out how it works and what is going on. Okay, not just open the eyes and see, like watching television. Now, open naiko, leading onward. As long as you start understanding and practicing some aspect, some part of the Buddha's teaching, it leads you step by step onwards. Onward to where? Towards attainment of nibbana, of realization. So it leads onwards to be personally known by the wise. Now, first thing, this thing is made up of two aspects, personally, and the other one is wise. Now, these things, Dhamma, to practice and to realize and to see its effects, has to be personal. And I call it personal because when we are hungry, we ourselves must eat something. It can be a biscuit, can be a lunch, can be a breakfast. We must eat something to appease our hunger. No one else can eat on your behalf. When you have tummy ache, you have to go to the toilet. No one can go on behalf. This is how personal it is. So this thing has to be done personally by the wise. Why the wise? The wise are the ones who with understanding, who with investigation, with curiosity, have investigated. They've come and investigated the logic, the rationality, and the possibilities of results. And that's why, because with this wisdom, they understand what's going on. Then they will venture and to accept and to come and learn and practice the Dhamma. The fools will not bother. The fools will just give passing or cursory comments and make jokes about it, and then walk away. So the wise will never bother to even understand the teaching, let alone practice it. That's why acceptance or even wanting to experiment, that means to test out without full 100% confidence yet. You may not have 100% experiential confidence yet, but initially you have some curiosity, you want to investigate. As you investigate, you practice, you see its results, then you are intrigued by all this, and your confidence grows. So that means your experiential confidence grows in depth, and therefore it only applies to the wise, and the wise have to know that they have to practice it personally. So that's why it is pacatang vetitapu vinyuni. Now, what does all this mean? Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo. Well taught is the true teaching, the Dhamma of the Blessed One. Now, from another commentary, Swakato means the Dhamma is well proclaimed or taught by the Enlightened One. It is excellent in the beginning in relation to morality, excellent in the middle in relation to development of concentration, of samadhi. Samadhi can also mean meditation, development of meditation, not just encompassing concentration, but it can also encompass mindfulness. So development of meditation, excellent in the end in relation to the development of wisdom. As far as the quality of swakato is concerned, Here it refers to both mundane or pariyati Dhamma and supramundane Dhamma, which are the 9 supramundane attainments. The Nava Lokutara Dhamma. Okay, you can refer to the URL given for more details. Now, visible or sanditiko, visible here and now. Commentary says, the quality of sanditiko means Dhamma is to be self-realized through personal effort and experience by following the Noble Eightfold Path. It will lead one to the final goal of liberation from suffering and the cycle of birth and death by attaining the state of Nibbana. Thus, the results are visible here now if you bother to learn and practice the Dhamma. Okay, and again, it is self-realized. Realization is always when you study, you realize or understand the topic, not you study and somebody else attains the realization. So it is very personal again. Timeless, akaliko. The quality of akaliko means Dhamma is timeless, and the results of Dhamma practice can be achieved immediately in this life itself without having to wait for any future lives. Now, there are some people who say, never mind, next life I'll practice. The only trouble with next life is you may not encounter the Dhamma again. Okay, the possibilities of rebirth are so vast, and depending on what you have been doing in this life and previous lives, the possibilities are so endless that the opportunity to come across the Dhamma may be lost completely. So just to put it off to the future is a big gamble, the ultimate risk. Ehi pasiko, inviting one to come and see. Also translation, another translation is inviting investigation or just to investigate. Now, Ehi pasiko means Dhamma is open and transparent as there is nothing mysterious or mythical about the Buddha's teaching. Now, the way some people use the term mythical, Buddhist mythicism, is because there was no investigation. Now, very often myth is rooted in stories, things which are not verifiable, and so on. The whole of Buddhism, or what the Buddha taught, what we call Buddhism, or what the Buddha called during his time, Dhamma Vinaya, is for the purpose of investigation. Now, when you start investigating, things have to be logical, has to be rational, has to be tested, has to be checked and verified whether it is possible to reach that state, or when you do certain things, can I have this result? When you start investigating this quality of ehipasiko, the idea of myth is blown away. The word myth does not apply anymore. In myth, there is no need to investigate. You are only required to just believe. Therefore, belief is against what the Buddha taught. Ehipasiko is the opposite of mere belief. So in some other philosophies or religions, there is always the emphasis on belief. Now, of course, as Buddhists, not knowing anything, we want to study Buddhism, the element of belief comes in, because we say, oh, I want to study Buddhism because my birth certificate say I'm a Buddhist, so it's only fair that I give Buddhism a chance. I shouldn't be going to other religions, study them, and I criticize Buddhism when I do not know anything about Buddhism, which is a very common thing in all over the world, especially among so-called born Buddhists. They just study other religion, they say, I convert. They say, I know about Buddhism, I was born inside it, but actually they don't nuts. Right? They haven't even heard about 5 precepts on the Noble Eightfold Path and so on, and they start criticizing Buddhism. But once you start knowing what the Buddha actually taught, the hipasiko become very, very strong. The aspect of belief and mythical ideas goes away. Okay, so you throw away the idea of belief. Now, in in some of the suttas given here, or stories about the disciples of the Buddha, you come again and again where certain disciples meeting with followers of other religions, they point to the important aspect of the importance of I know versus I believe. I know means they have studied it, they have practiced it, they have attained that stage, they have experienced that thing which the Buddha is encouraging you to do. So when they experience it, they don't have to believe what the Buddha says. They can only say the word I know because they themselves have practiced it and they know it for themselves. They may not be enlightened, they may not be arahats or even sotapan, but they know what the Buddha is talking about. So the I know or I understand, I realize is blowing away the idea of mythology in Buddhism. So there's no myth in Buddhism. So anyone can be invited to see, investigate, practice, and experience the results of the Dhamma, which is pure and clear. This portion is very important. Another thing I might like to add is the quality of investigation is what they call permeates not just at the coffee table area where we start reading about reading Buddhist textbooks and coming for MBE courses, sitting for exams and such like. It goes into meditation also. In meditation, you are being invited to know for yourselves, but know for yourself not of other people's situation, but of your own situation, your own experiences of sitting, of standing, of what is your mind doing. That means you see it for yourself, you experience it for yourself. Even to the extent of when you are at the doorstep of enlightenment, especially when you're practicing the 7 factors of enlightenment, the number 2, the Buddha talks about the quality of investigating Dhamma. That means investigating or getting to know phenomena. So right from the beginning, right up to the doorstep of enlightenment, investigation plays a critical part, which is spurred on or initiated by Ehi-Pasiko. Now, another one is open naiko, accessible or leading onward.
Brother Ananda, can I stop you for one clarification? Your previous
I
slide.
hope it's short, otherwise there's not enough
Short one, very short one.
Okay.
The previous slide shows Ehi-Pasiko
Yes.
with lowercase Dhamma. Dhamma is open and transparent. Is this Dhamma also equivalent to what we say phenomena, natural phenomena?
Okay, it covers two areas. First things, what the Buddha taught is a subset of all the natural laws in the universe, which is also called Dhamma.
Yes.
All the natural laws in the universe is also called Dhamma. Here, the Buddha is talking to with respect to the subset, which means he has sieved through all that he knows when he became enlightened underneath the Bowie tree. He sieved through, and the narrow confines of the Dhamma which he realized is useful enough for us to understand the Dhamma that helps us to gain what they call to liberate ourselves from suffering, to get rid, to understand the suffering or dukkha and attain nibbana. So both are still open. That means the universal laws are still open and transparent. The Dhamma of the Buddha, that means discovery of the Buddha, is still open and transparent. But of course, in this case, the Buddha have discovered it and explained how it works to us. The rest of the natural laws, which some of which we have studied in school, especially physics, chemistry, and maybe cosmology and all that the Buddha didn't teach. So we cannot verify those lah.
Okay. Understand? Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
So open naiko, accessible, leading onward. The commentary says the quality of open naiko means Dhamma is suitable to be brought inside oneself and to be experienced within oneself. So that this is further what they call elaboration of the term I know. Okay, to be experienced within yourself. Once you experience it, you don't have to believe. You can say the word I know because I have practiced the Dhamma as taught by the Buddha, not merely believing what the Buddha says or his venerables or his enlightened disciples like Venerable Sariputta say and so on. You don't care about those. They can teach you, but after that, you practice, you experience it for yourself, then you can say, I know what they are talking about because I've experienced it. So this is what Open Naiko is about. Now, Dhamma is also worthy of being followed as part of one's life in order to attain Nibbana or liberation from suffering. As I mentioned, leading onward, the whole purpose of Dhamma Vinaya, as taught by the Buddha or summarized in the Four Noble Truths, has one important aspect: to lift yourself out of dukkha. Okay, if you are interested in other questions, nothing to do with dukkha, then the Dhamma Vinaya or Buddhism is not for you. Okay, some people are very speculative. They want to explore this aspect of the universe or that aspect of the universe. But the whole of Buddhism is about dukkha and how to get rid of dukkha within yourself, which is essentially the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so as long as you get acquainted with the Buddha's teaching as summarized or dwell in deep within the Four Noble Truths, then you are well on the way. You're onward towards Nibbana. You're onward towards understanding dukkha, its cause, its ending, and how to do it. Okay. To be personally known by the wise, Pacatang Vetitabo Vinyohi. Now, Dhamma is to be practiced and realized individually by each person depending on the maturity of one's wisdom. Only those who knew, understand, and practice the Dhamma is as instructed by the Buddha will be able to realize the truth. Now, although the term realize the truth, as if other religions do not have the truth in their religions, that is not true. Realize the truth here actually means understand how the universe is working with respect to dukkha, rebirth, karma, and then how to attain nibbana. Here, this is what we mean by realize the truth. Now, but of course, it has to be known by you because you are trying to uplift yourself from your own dukkha to realizing nibbana. So it's like only when you eat dinner can you feel full. Okay, if you don't eat, somebody else eat, you are still hungry. So it is as personal as that. So, and of course, as I mentioned, only the wise would bother to venture into this. Now, further from the commentary, here it mentions, when someone embarks on meditation by reflecting on the 6 qualities of the Dhamma, it is helpful to have a strong base of moral discipline, sila, which can help the meditator to avoid any remorse or mental defilements during meditation. Now, for a lay meditator, the minimum moral discipline to be observed has been described as the 5 precepts, Panchasila, which can be observed having first taken refuge in the 3 jewels or triple gem of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Now, a lot of people, they try to go into meditation as Buddhists. I'm not talking about circular meditators, but Buddhist meditators. The strong base mentioned here is very, very important. The strong base is that of observance of the 5 precepts as a minimum. It helps to let the meditator avoid a lot of problems while meditating. Some people, when they meditate, they have all kinds of funny ideas or thoughts coming to their mind, which due to their limited, they have not studied Buddhism and don't have a strong base in at least the theory portion. What happens? They may be influenced by strange ideas like, oh, the devil is coming into my mind, pushing ideas into my mind. I have a lot of stray thoughts. The devil is disturbing me. Actually, the devil is themselves. Why? It is their lack of good observance of the 5 precepts, or maybe even zero observance of the 5 precepts. So all these disturbance or hindrances to their meditation is because they do not have a strong moral base. And that can only be provided by a good, strong, conscientious observance of the 5 precepts. In the Mahanama Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha has instructed Mahanama that the Dhamma Nusati. Dhamma Nusati means, sati means mindfulness, anu means to reflect upon, Dhamma is the teaching, in this case, the teaching of the Buddha. So mindful reflection of the Dhamma. In other words, this, what they call, 6 qualities of the Dhamma, okay, or the mirror of the Dhamma, as we are, where this talk is about. This talk can be also be summarized as Dhammanusati. So that can be practiced in any posture, at work, or in a crowded house. The Buddha said, Mahanama, you should develop this recollection of the Dhamma while you are walking, while you are standing, while you are sitting, while you are lying down, while you're busy at work, while you're resting in your home, crowded with children. However, during the initial practice, one should try to find an appropriate place in a good environment that is conducive to practicing meditation. A quiet and clean place in one's household where one can be alone without being distracted or disturbed by others would be suitable. Okay, so this recollection of Dhamma has various effects. One is it, what they call, prevents your mind, or at least attempts to prevent your mind from straying to other thoughts which disturb our minds. Because our minds, we can't control our minds. Our minds, the thoughts that appear in our mind are determined by what you have been doing recently, what kind of, say, TV programs you've been watching recently, or games, computer games you were playing, or what kind of videos you've been watching, what articles you have been reading and recent, and even those going back to the past, okay, a few weeks, a few months, a few years back. And occasionally, some people might even recollect some of the things they have done in their past life. So this comes and influence the ideas appearing in your mind as thoughts. So recollection of the Dhamma, or even recollection of the Buddha, all these recollections help you to, what they call, center your mind to the proper ideas. And to recollect all these aspects of Dhamma is not just the items listed in the 6 qualities, but you must understand and appreciate what each of these 6 qualities, when you go deep into it, what it actually means. So it's not just mere recitation, it is what they call reflection or recollection with understanding of the qualities of the Dhamma. And therefore it steers your mind. If you habitually do this, then your mind will be, shall we say, have a habit of automatically recollecting the Dhamma, and therefore other stray, crazy thoughts will not come in so often. I won't say it won't come in, but it will come in less often, less and less, until you are purely in the recollection of the Buddha or even the Dhamma. Okay. Now, though Dhammanusati bhavana means mental development, can be practiced in any posture. In the beginning, you should preferably sit on the floor in the comfortable position with the back kept straight and upright and shoulders relaxed. Now, if sitting on the floor is too uncomfortable, a meditation cushion can be helpful, or else one could sit on a stool or a chair. Okay, for Asians, what they call the older generation, sitting on the floor is very common. But for the modern generation, sitting on chair is probably, sitting on the floor, it becomes getting to be more alien. Okay, so one should take a few deep breaths to relax and develop an awareness of the body in the current sitting posture. The practice of mindfulness of breathing for a short while in the beginning can help to prepare the mind to begin the reflection on the qualities of Dhamma. Forward and backward reflection of the 6 qualities of the Dhamma first will make it easier to reflect on each individual quality subsequently. To reflect on the 6 qualities together, one could mentally repeat them forward and backward for some time as follows. Okay, this is the forward reflection, as normally in the chanting and any setting, this is a normal. But backward reflection, you can go from the back to the front. Now, moving on, the Dutiya Mahanama Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya, Book of 11, Sutta number 12. Now, when you're grounded in these 5 things, go on to develop 6 further things. When they are joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, they feel bliss. When they feel bliss, the mind becomes immersed in samadhi. In this case, samadhi means concentration. You should keep this recollection of the teaching while walking, standing, sitting, lying down, while working, and while at home with your children. Furthermore, you should recollect the Sangha, your own ethical conduct, your own generosity, the deities. Now, this particular sutta, you can check at the top there was a ... before touching on the 6 further things to develop. Now, when the forward and backward reflection of the 6 qualities together is done for some time, then the meditator can go on to reflect on each quality individually. You could begin by reflecting on the quality of swakato by mentally repeating it while being aware of the meaning associated with the quality as described above. When the meditator feels the quality of swakato is reflected upon enough, then one can reflect on the other 5 qualities, one at a time, with the associated meanings. It is important to continue reflecting on each quality of Dhamma at a slow and steady pace, rather than doing it fast or very slow, and also to give each quality equal time. During the meditation, by reflecting on the quality of Dhamma, it is very likely that the mind will be distracted by many unwanted thoughts. If that happens, the meditator should bring the mind back to the quality that one is reflecting upon. With continued reflection, distractions will reduce and concentration of the mind will develop with the suppression of mental hindrances. Through regular practice and by gradually increasing the duration of each sitting, the meditator will be able to develop a reasonable level of concentration of the mind. It will also lead to a sense of increased devotion and conviction in the Buddha and his teachings. Now, when the meditator meditates on reflecting on the qualities of the Dhamma consistently, it will lead to strengthening of one's devotion and conviction in the Buddha and the Buddha's teaching. Saddha is an essential factor that needs to be present in anyone who embarks on the Buddhist spiritual journey to gain enlightenment and escape from suffering and the cycle of birth and death. It is the first of the 5 spiritual faculties, Pancha Indriya, that needs to be cultivated during one's spiritual journey. The other spiritual faculties are effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. The word Saddha, S-A-D-D-H-A, is frequently translated as faith, F-A-I-T-H in English. But faith in English has another connotation, because English has another meaning called blind faith. For blind faith is akin to what I call mere belief without investigation. Saddha is not blind faith. Saddha requires one to investigate and reflect upon certain aspects to verify at least basically some of the logic and rationality. And Saddha can only grow when your understanding goes deeper and deeper, usually through repeated reflection and meditation. So Saddha itself, they call it conviction, but it's rooted in understanding and growing confidence in the Buddha and his teachings. And that can only happen when you investigate and practice it. Now, reflection on the quality of the Dhamma can purify the mind from the mental defilements, such as greed, hatred, and delusion. In the Mahanama Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha has described it as follows. At any time when the noble disciple of the noble ones is recollecting the Dhamma, his mind is not overcome with passion, not overcome with aversion or hatred, not overcome with delusion. Now, in the Dajaga Sutta of the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha has advised the monks that if they feel any fear, terror, or horror while meditating in the forest or in an empty place, they should recollect the qualities of the Buddha. But if they cannot recollect the Buddha, they should then recollect the qualities of the Dhamma. Now here, just elaborate a little bit. During the time of the Buddha, even now some of the monks do that. They will go into the forest and stay in the forest. Okay. Now, in the forest, as in the daytime, maybe not so much of a problem, but at night, when there's literally no light at all, there are a lot of sounds in the forests or jungles. And it is quite natural that fear within us will arise. And many often, even those people who try to go into the Malaysian jungles or Thai jungles to meditate, those who thought they are what they call very steady, they actually run out of the jungle in fear. So it is quite common for that. That's why the Buddha sometimes advised certain monks, your saddha has to be very strong, your meditation has to be strong to be able to continue to stay in the forest day and night, despite all the interesting sounds you might hear all around you throughout the night. Now, in the Patama Mahanama Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya Book 11, Sutta number 11, at one time the Buddha was staying in the land of the Sakyans near Kapilavatu in the Vaidyantree monastery. It's appropriate that gentlemen such as you come to me and ask, we spend our life in various ways. Which of these should we practice? The faithful succeed, not the faithless. This is a translator. Now, the word faithful here is the Pali in italics and in yellow is saddo. Basically, the root word is saddha. The energetic succeed, not the lazy. The mindful succeed, not the unmindful. Those with immersion means, in other way, another translation could be concentration or unification of the mind. Those with immersion succeed, not those without immersion. The wise succeed, not the witless. When you're grounded on these 5 things, go on to develop 6 further things. Firstly, you should recollect the Buddha. Further, you should recollect the teaching. The teaching is well explained by the Buddha, apparent in the present life, immediately effective, inviting investigation, relevant, so that sensible people can know it for themselves. So notice this is yet another translation of the familiar Swakato, Bhagavata, Dhammo, and so on. When a noble disciple recollects the teaching, their mind is not full of hate, of greed, hatred, and delusion. At that time, their mind is unswerving, based on the teaching. A noble disciple whose mind is unswerving finds inspiration in the meaning and the teaching, and finds joy connected with the teaching. Notice here, the Buddha mentions when you reflect on the teaching or recollect the teachings, you are going step by step, quality by quality, and there are 6 qualities. And when you go into the meaning, the deep meaning of each of the qualities, you find inspiration in the meaning. So the meaning is of each of the words in the 6 qualities is very important. and you find joy connected with the teaching. When they are because of that, when they are joyful, rapture springs up. What is rapture? In a way, some aspect of joy related to joyfulness. You're happy. When the mind is full of joy and happiness or rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, they feel bliss. And when they are blissful, the mind becomes immersed in samadhi. This is called a noble disciple. He lives in balance among people who are unbalanced and lives untroubled among people who are troubled. They have entered the stream of the teaching and developed the recollection of the teaching. Furthermore, you should recollect the Sangha. So this recollection goes on to the other qualities. Now again, the Pali term for recollection is anusareyasi. The anu aspect is recollection. Benefits. If you cannot recollect me, it means reflecting on the Buddha's qualities, then you should recollect the Dhamma. The Dhamma is well founded by the Blessed One, to be seen here and now, timeless, inviting investigation, pertinent, to be realized by the wise for themselves. For when you have recollected the Dhamma, whatever fear, terror, or horror there is will be abandoned. So this one, what they call, builds confidence within oneself to get rid of, at least temporarily during the reflection, get rid of fear, terror, and horror. As one of the 40 objects suitable for concentration meditation, reflecting on the quality of Dhamma will lead to the development of concentration of mind. Those who have monkey mind, this is one object of meditation which helps you to center the mind and concentrate the mind. It will also lead to the suppression of the 5 mental hindrances, Pancha Nivarana. In the Mahanama Sutta, the Buddha has stated, his mind heads straight based on the Dhamma. And when the mind is headed straight, the disciple of the noble ones gains a sense of the goal, gains a sense of the Dhamma, gains joy connected with the Dhamma. In one who is joyful, rapture arises. In one who is rapturous, the body grows calm. One whose body is calm experiences ease. In one at ease, the mind becomes concentrated. Now here, this list you have come across in a few pages already. They keep on repeating it. When one is joyful, rapture arises. Now, when you are rapturous, which in a way, rapture is an intensification of joy, the body grows calm. That means before you are joyful, your body was not calm. Okay, so calmness in your body requires some degree of joy and deep joy or rapture. And when the body is calm, the ease or tranquility is experienced. In one who is at ease, the mind becomes concentrated. So the body and mind is connected in this way. You are practicing so that although joy and rapture is in a way a kind of mental experience, but the mind and body are connected. And the rapturous mind helps the body to grow calm. When the body is calm, then you experience ease as well in the body as well as in the mind. And the mind becomes concentrated. So this is step by step. With the Dhamma Nusati Bhavana, one can develop the concentration of the mind only up to the level of assessed concentration, Upachara Samadhi. Now, the term Upachara Samadhi is a commentarial term and also a term used probably in the Abhidhamma. Assessed concentration is the not jhana yet, one step before jhana. And at that stage, the 5 hindrances are suppressed temporarily, but you are still not in jhana yet. Now that means it will not result in the development of deep mental absorptions, jhana. Okay, this is due to the depth and profoundness of the qualities of the Dhamma, and also because the meditator is reflecting on qualities of several kinds that needs intense and continuing effort. in the Jaga Sutta, Sutta Nikaya, chapter number 11, Sutta number 3. This sutta was given at Savatthi, the capital of the Kosala kingdom. The Buddha addressed the monks. Venerables, they replied, the Buddha said this. Once upon a time, monks, a battle was fought between the gods and the Titans. As Titans means the Asuras, another plane existence. The Devas were fighting with the Asuras. Then Saka, Lord of the gods, addressed the gods of the 33. Good sirs, when the gods are fighting, if you get scared or terrified, just look up at my banner's crest. Well, in ancient wartime, even today for that matter, there's always a flag. Soldiers, the army or the battalion will have their own crest, their own symbol, which they sew on the uniform and in the present day and so on. So you have the banner's crest representing their battalion and so on. In this case, Saka is saying, my battalion. So you have my banner's crest. Then your fear and terror will go away. If you can't see my banner's crest, then look up at the banner's crest of the progenitor, king of gods. Then your fear and terror will go away. If you can't see his banner's crest, then look up at the banner's crest of the Varuna, king of gods. Then your fear and terror will go away. If you can't see this banner's crest, then look up at the banner's crest of the Isana, God, king of gods. Then your fear and terror will go away. However, when they look up at those banner's crests, their fear and terror might go away or it might not. Why is that? The Buddha said, because Saka is not free of greed, hate, and delusion. He is fearful, scared, nervous, quick to flee. But monks, I say this, if you have gone to a wilderness, that means in the jungle, or to the root of a tree, or to an empty hut, and you get scared or terrified, just recollect me. That means recollect the 9 qualities of the Buddha. Buddha Nusati. Now, the Blessed One is perfected, a fully awakened Buddha, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy, knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to train, teacher of gods and humans, awakened, blessed. Then your fear and terror will go away. Now, these qualities, 9 qualities, you should be familiar. Itipiso, Bhagava, Arahang, Samma, Sambuddho, and so on, covered by the earlier lecturer. If you can't recollect me, then recollect the teaching. Dhamma anu sareyati. The Dhamma, the teaching is well explained by the Buddha, apparent in the present life, immediately effective, inviting inspection, relevant, so that sensible people can know it for themselves. Then your fear and terror will go away. If you can't recollect the teaching, then recollect the Sangha. It means the 9 qualities of the Sangha. The Sangha of the Buddha's disciple is practicing the way that's good, direct, systematic, and proper. It consists of 4 pairs, the 8 individuals. This is the Sangha of the Buddha's disciples that is worthy of offerings, dedicated to the gods, worthy of hospitality, worthy of religious donation, worthy of greeting with joint palms or anjali, and it's a supreme field of merit for the world. And it typically starts with Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, which most of us are familiar. Then your fear and terror will go away. Why is that? Because the realized one is free of greed, hate, and delusion. He is fearless, brave, bold, and stands his ground. That is what the Buddha said. Then the Holy One, the teacher, went on to say. So with the Dhammanusati Bhavana, one can develop the concentration of the mind only up to assess concentration as mentioned. This means it cannot go into deep mental absorptions, which is jhana, as mentioned earlier. Then concentration of mind developed by reflecting on the qualities of the Dhamma can be utilized by the meditator as a firm base to begin insight meditation. Insight is vipassana. The word vipassana is essentially made up of two main words, pasana and the vi in front. Pasana is to see deeply. V is special or extra, supra. So this extra special seeing or understanding is translated as insight meditation. Through insight meditation, one is able to realize the reality of mental and physical phenomena, such as impermanence, suffering, and not self. This insight or wisdom will help the meditator to attain the noble stages of the Buddhist spiritual path and final liberation from suffering. Now, in the Nandiya Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya Book of 11, Sutta number 13, at one time, the Buddha was staying in the land of the Sakyans, near Kapilavatthu, in the Banyan Tree Monastery. Now, Nandiya went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and said to him, "Now, we spend our life in various ways. Which of these should we practice?" Now, notice, although a different sutta, a similar thing is mentioned again. The faithful succeed, not the faithless. The ethical succeed, not the unethical. Now, here is not just underlined like the others, but ethical is also in yellow, a different degree of emphasis. So ethical practice is also very important. The energetic succeed, not the lazy. The mindful succeed, not the unmindful. Those with immersion succeed, not those without immersion. The wise succeed, not the witless. When you're grounded on these 6 qualities, go on to develop 5 further things. Firstly, you should recollect the Buddha or the realized one. Furthermore, you should recollect the teaching. That is back to the recollection of the Dhamma. In this way, you should establish mindfulness internally based on the teachings. Furthermore, you should recollect your good friends, your own generosity, and recollect the deities. Here, we are talking about the qualities of your good friends, your own generosity, what you have been doing, why you have been doing, and recollect the deities, why they are born as deities. That means higher planes as existence in the first place, because they've been doing a lot of wholesome actions. Now, some of the past year questions regarding virtues of the Dhamma. What are the virtues of the Dhamma? Notice almost every year. I didn't include the latest, the latest years, but you can get it, you can understand it is always there. Explain clearly how practicing the Dhamma will give us insight to the Tilakkhana, or the 3 characteristics of life. And what are the 3 characteristics of life? Anicca, dukkha, anatta, or impermanence, suffering, or unsatisfactoriness, and not self. It might not come every year, but quite often already. Explain clearly how, by practicing the Dhamma, will give us ultimate happiness in life. Okay, the suttas actually clearly give you those aspects to allow you to develop saddha, as well as deepen your concentration. That means bring your concentration up to neighborhood concentration, upachara samadhi, from where you can continue to practice insight meditation. But elsewhere in the suttas, there is mention about deepening levels of concentration. That means there is joyful, there is rapture, there is bodily ease. The bodily is not tight. Then with that, then there is ease. Then your samadhi grows. Those are the things you can quote from the few suttas I already mentioned. So from 2 directions, you can actually answer this question. And the importance and purpose of recollecting these virtues. Okay, so yeah. So that was the qualities of the Dhamma. So with that, we can take a short intermission, 5 minutes break. We come back at say, I think maybe instead of 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Now it's 3:31. We come back at 3:35. Okay, 3:35. Okay, welcome back. Now it's 3:36. Next topic, the 5 mental hindrances or obstacles. So obstacles, we are quite familiar as given in the poster on the right-hand side. We have a lot of physical obstacles, but mental obstacles, well, difficult to provide a picture for that. Now, here, further commentaries. The 5 mental hindrances by Professor David Dale Holmes. This professor has recently passed away. The Venerable Nyanaponika in the 5 mental hindrances and their conquest begins. Unshakable deliverance of the mind is the highest goal in the Buddha's doctrine. Here, deliverance means the freeing of the mind from all limitations, fetters, and bonds that tie it to the wheel of suffering, to the cycle of rebirth. It means the cleansing of the mind of all defilements that mar its purity, the removal of all obstacles that bar its progress from the mundane or lokiya to the supra-mundane consciousness, lokutara citta, that is to arahatship. Now, many are the obstacles that block the road to spiritual progress, but there are 5 in particular, which under the name of hindrances or nivarana are often mentioned in Buddhist scriptures. The 5 mental hindrances are sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, skeptical doubt. So these are the 5. And in many other suttas, this will recur frequently. And especially in meditation, we are trying to get past these 5 mental hindrances in any one sitting. Now, they are called hindrances because they hinder and cloud the development of the mind or bhavana. So they hinder, they put roadblocks to your development of your mind. They can hinder right concentration, so the mind remains bound within the mundane state, blocked from maintaining access to supra-mundane states. The mind which demands nourishment based on fetters to mundane states will be tied to attachments from which it cannot be delivered. So mentioned by Venerable Nyanaponika. Now, concerning nourishment, the Venerable Nyanaponika quotes the Pali text. Just as monks, this body lives on nourishment, here talking about food, water, and so on, lives dependent on nourishment, does not live without nourishment. In the same way, monks, the 5 hindrances live on nourishment, dependent on nourishment, do not live without nourishment. So this is extracted from Kaya Sutta from the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 46, Sutta number 2. Now, nourishment of sensual desire. There are beautiful objects. Frequently giving unwise attention to them, this is nourishment. For the arising of sensual desire, there has not yet arisen, and the nourishment for the increasing and strengthening of sensual desire, there has already arisen. Ahara. Now, Ahara Sutta, Ahara, Hara, H-A-R-A, means nourishment. Ahara means no nourishment. Now, nourishment of ill will. There are objects causing aversion. Frequently giving attention to them, this is nourishment of the arising of ill will that has not yet arisen. And for the increase and strengthening of ill will that has already arisen. Now, the key word in the previous page, that of sensual desire, and even in ill will, frequently giving attention to them. That means we encourage, we do not censor we allow the arising of these mental factors. Okay, this sensation, this feeling of, okay, we do not see them as enemies. So we allow them to linger on, we dwell in them, we encourage them, we want to see some more beautiful pictures, or we want to have more ill will, especially in politics. You see this politician, then ill will arises, and all these kind of things. So nourishment of sloth and torpor. There arises listlessness, lassitude, stretching of the body, drowsiness after meals, mental sluggishness. So sloth is super slow lah. You know, the sloth, the animal sloth, they want to cross the road and so on. They are super, super slow. So not only that, drowsiness after meals, mental sluggishness, frequently giving unwise attention to it. This is the nourishment for the rising of sloth and torpor that have not yet arisen, and for the increase and strengthening of sloth and torpor that have already arisen. And now, nourishing the restlessness and remorse. There is unrest of the mind, frequently giving unwise attention to it. That is the nourishment of the arising of restlessness and remorse that have not yet arisen, and the strengthening of restlessness and remorse that have already arisen. Nourishment of doubt. There are things causing doubt, frequently giving attention to them. That is the nourishment of the rising of doubt that has not yet arisen, and the strengthening of doubt that has already arisen. We have all experienced sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and skeptical doubt. Now, they are like bad companions that like to hang around, but there is a way to get rid of them. Conquest of the 5 mental hindrances can be achieved by starving them, giving them nothing to feed on through de-nourishment. Now, further commentary, the 5 mental hindrances by Professor David Dale Holmes. Sensual desire. Now, suppose the object of perception is a beautiful young woman or man. Despite our eyes being attracted by outward beauty, we may also realize that her or his body is full of blood, pus, guts, feces, and not quite as attractive as it first seems. When we note an object of sensual desire entering the perceptive field, we may observe and analyze it as a source of impurities. Knowing that an attractive form is also ruled by feelings, perceptions, arising mental associations, and resultant consciousness, we realize that the desired object is a bundle of urges and energy aggregates that are certain to spell trouble. And so it is with all 5 mental hindrances. What first attracts the senses or consciousness may start a fire within the mind. Instead of providing soothing satisfaction, when the eye and the other 6 sense doors are not trained, they will want to get up to mischief, and therefore they have to be carefully contained. Ill will. When the senses want pleasant perceptions, but instead get unpleasant ones, ugly, noisy, smelly, distasteful, or repulsive to touch, then suffering ensues. Suppose a neighbor's music is too noisy or his garbage too smelly. It is easy to get involved and react to the unpleasant perception, developing a sense of consciousness and thinking, this is not right. I'm going to tell him. No sooner have you reacted than the neighbor is reacting back, and you are both feeling ill will. The moment you get involved and react, you lose whatever sense of equanimity you had, and you may begin growling like an untamed animal. The antidote to ill will is a good grounding in loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. When these four factors are there, you will not make your neighbor your enemy, no matter how badly he behaves. Under no circumstances should we lose composure. Loss of equanimity affords an opportunity for ill will to nourish itself and run rampant. And this is exactly what ill will wants to do with you. Sloth and torpor. We fall into sloth, which is a lack of motivation and laziness, and torpor, lethargy, listlessness, when we sink into a state of inertia and cannot arouse enough energy to do anything. But we can combat inertia by arousing energy through an act of the will. If our mind becomes dull, we can arouse energy through reflecting on birth, decay, disease, death, and impermanence. We can avoid overeating or change body postures in order to keep alert, or contemplate the perception of light, or remain in the open air, or do walking meditation in places where there are sharp-sided stones, or alternatively, converse with suitable Dhamma friends to arouse sympathetic joy. Restless and remorse. We have all felt restless, uneasy, nervous, or full of worry and remorse. The antidote for denourishment of restlessness is the application of wise attention to direct the mind into calmer mental states of quietude and tranquility, or alternatively through practicing the monk's rules more thoroughly, thereby developing calmness. The more restlessness there is in the mind, the more opportunities the defilements will have to stir up nervous energy, to create a spark in the mind that eats up nervous energy as fuel for negative nourishment. Skeptical doubt. There may be doubt within the mind or uncertainty, which enters via outside influences. Once a spark of uncertainty has arisen to ignite doubt, it is hard to establish and maintain confidence. Uncertainty, which lurks and hides in the dark corners of the mind, can be a dangerous enemy because it attacks from inside, where we are defenseless, owing to a lack of focus and concentration. It is good that we have the 5 precepts, which counterbalance the 5 hindrances, giving us the confidence to follow the Buddha's doctrine of unshakable deliverance of the mind. Now, in another article by Professor David Dale Holmes, Hindering the Hindrances. Once we have developed some skill in following the 5 precepts, the next step is continue making progress on the path by learning how to deal with the 5 mental hindrances and their relationship to concentration and meditation. What are the 5 hindrances? Let's begin an analogy. There are 5 impurities of gold, impaired by which it is not pliant and wieldy, lacks radiance, is brittle, and cannot be wrought well. What are these 5 impurities? Iron, copper, tin, lead, and silver. But if the gold has been freed from these 5 impurities, then it will be pliant, wieldy, radiant, and firm, and can be wrought well. Whatever ornaments one wishes to make from it, be it a diadem, earrings, a necklace, a golden chain, it will serve that purpose. Similarly, there are 5 impurities of the mind, impaired by which the mind is not pliant and wieldy, lacks radiant lucidity and firmness, and cannot concentrate well upon the eradication of the taints. What are these 5 impurities? They are sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, and skeptical doubt. But if the mind is free of these 5 impurities, it will be pliant and wieldy, will have radiant lucidity and firmness, and will concentrate well upon the eradication of the taints. Whatever state realizable by the higher mental faculties, one may direct the mind to. One will, in each case, acquire the capacity of realization if the other conditions are fulfilled. Now, concerning nourishment of sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness, remorse, and doubt, for most of us, they appear daily as bad companions which hang around and will not go away. This is one of the worst manifestations of ignorance. And if we do not want to be ignorant in such a way, ignorant due to just not knowing, there is a proven method for making each hindrance go away in due turn. The conquest of the five hindrances can be achieved by starving them, giving them nothing to feed on, now through what Venerable Nyana Ponika calls de-nourishment, depriving the hindrance of energy to feed upon. Now, in the Patakamma Sutta, one whose heart is overwhelmed by ill will, by sloth and torpor, by restlessness and remorse, by skeptical doubt, will do what he should not do and neglect what he ought to do. And through that, his good name and his happiness will come to ruin. But if a noble disciple has seen these five as defilements of the mind, he will give them up. And in doing so, he is regarded as one of great wisdom, of abundant wisdom, clear visioned, well endowed with wisdom. This is called endowment with wisdom. The final observation is that it is a good thing we have the five precepts to help balance the five hindrances. Otherwise, without them, who knows what potentially destructive energies could break loose and cause havoc in our minds. Nivarana Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya, Book of 9, Sutta number 64. Now, monks, there are these five hindrances. What five? Sensual desire, ill will, dullness and drowsiness, restlessness and remorse, and doubt. Now, before I continue, I just want to highlight, since the topic of finances and exam questions always come out about them, don't just assume the past year questions, or rather the exam questions will mention everything in English. Be familiar with some of the Pali words like five hindrances, pancha nivarana. So if the exam question asks you what is the pancha nivarana in English, you should be able to easily translate that, especially if it's an objective question. Similarly, for terms like sensual desire, ill will, dullness, drowsiness, restlessness, and remorse and doubt, you should know the Pali word for each of them. You should be familiar with them. So on this page and in previous pages also, the Pali is given usually in italics next to them. Now, to give up these five hindrances, you should develop the four kinds of mindfulness meditation. Chattaro Satipatthana Bhavitaba. Now, Chattaro means four. Satipatthana means foundations of mindfulness. Now, it's when the medicant meditates by observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. This is called Kaya Nupasi, being mindful of the body. Now here, the translation says, meditates on an aspect of the body with a keen, aware, mindful, rid of extreme greediness and displeasure or hatred for the world. The key word is you are keen to know what's going on, you're aware and you're mindful. And an aspect of the body means you don't have to look at the whole body, you can focus on certain portion of the body. Like if you're sitting, doing sitting meditation, meditating on the body can involve noting or be mindful of sitting, the contact of your buttock to the cushion or the chair and so on, and other areas of the body. They meditate observing an aspect of feelings. They meditate observing an aspect of the mind. They meditate observing an aspect of principles, keen, aware, mindful, rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. Now, to give up those 5 hindrances, you should develop these 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. So basically here in this sutta is referring you to the Satipatthana Sutta, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Again, in the Anapanasati Sutta, this sutta I think I mentioned again before, Sati means mindfulness, Anapana means breathing in and breathing out. So the mindfulness of breathing in and breathing out. From the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 118. In this Sangha, there are monks who are committed to developing the meditation on mindfulness of breathing. Monks, when mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it is very fruitful and beneficial. Mindfulness of breathing, when developed and cultivated, fulfills the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. Here, the translator used the word 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. But the Pali gives it away. Satipatthane. Okay, Chattaro Satipatthane. Again, back to the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So even this sutta refers to the Satipatthana practice. The 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, when developed and cultivated, fulfill the 7 awakening factors. Satta Bojjhanga. Satta means 7. Bojjhanga means awakening factors. And the 7 awakening factors, when developed and fulfilled, and developed and cultivated, fulfill knowledge and freedom. Knowledge is vijja. Vimutti is freedom. Notice the Pali word vijja is knowledge. Avijja is no knowledge or ignorance. In the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, in this case also given in the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 10 or the Digha Nikaya Sutta number 22. So at one time, the Buddha was staying in the land of the Gurus near the Guru town named Kamasa Dhamma. There, the Buddha addressed the monks. Notice ... Monks, the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation are the path to convergence. They are in order to purify sentient beings, to get past sorrow and crying, to make an end of pain and sadness, to discover the system and to realize extinguishment. So this is the purpose of the 4 foundations of mindfulness or 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. Chattaro Satipatthana. What for? Is when a monk meditates by observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, mindful, rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. They meditate observing an aspect of feelings, keen, aware, mindful, rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. So the mindfulness of the body, kaya kayanupasi, kaya anupasi. Anu means to reflect on the body. Vedanasu, Vedana, to reflect on the feelings. And of course, there are 3 kinds of feelings: pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, neutral feelings. They meditate observing an aspect of the mind. Citta Cittanupasi. They meditate observing an aspect of principles, which is Dhamma. Dhammesu Dhammanupasi. Starving the Beast by Professor David Dale Holmes. As Buddhist practitioners, we must understand how to counter the 5 hindrances in order to avoid a lot of unnecessary suffering. Sensual desire. When we note an object of sensual desire entering the perceptive field, we can catch it before it catches us and watch and analyze it as a source of impurity, despite its apparent and alluring beauty. So this is a mental object. So we note the sensual desire entering our perceptive field. That means when we became aware of them, we know it has entered. Of course, if you are daydreaming, you will not be aware of them coming through. But once you are aware of them, we can catch it before it catches us. What do you mean by before it catches us? When this sensual desire catches us, we become involved in the story. Okay, when you meditate, sometimes certain ideas or thoughts appear in the mind. Then we get involved in the story and we add more fuel, more narrative. We become part of the writer and write more scripts or more, and the story gets longer and longer. So your daydreaming gets longer and longer and longer until there is what they call like a soap opera. But we want to be able to catch it before it catches us. So we know that it come into the perceptive, we become aware of its arising. We watch it. Why? We watch it as a thought and see what happens. Analyze it as a source of impurity, despite its apparent and alluring beauty. We watch all these thoughts, and in this case, this kind of thought is sensual desire. So we watch it and see its characteristic. And it's almost commonly known that its characteristic is anicca, dukkha, and maybe we can see anatta also. But anicca is most obvious. They come about, they hang around for a short while, and they disappear. Then another thought comes, which may be sensual desire or something else. They arise, they hang around, and they disappear. This is the anicca aspect. Suppose the object of perception is a young beauty queen. Despite our eye being caught by her apparent beauty, we can remind ourselves that what we see outwardly is only an external sheath of what is internally full of blood, pus, guts, gore, and feces, and therefore not as attractive as it might seem. Close observation and analysis becomes de-nourishing. Now, when we know that this beautiful form is ruled by feelings, perceptions, mental associations, and consciousness, we should know that I consciousness is a bundle of energy, urges that are certain to spell trouble if we obtain what we want and label it mine. Hence the adage, be careful what you wish for because you might get it. The odds are not good that you and she both want the same things. Yet the body mind is fooling itself when, without even thinking, it selfishly says, I like to get my hands on that. All these are getting involved in the story. In this case, the story of sensual desire. This notion has caught you already instead of you catching it. The point here is that what the mind body wants, if we let the untrained mind follow its impulses and whims, will likely become a source of disappointment. Whatever we desire, the odds are unlikely that we will achieve the fulfillment of our wishes. And so it is with all of the five hindrances. What at first attracts the senses or consciousness is more likely to start a fire in the mind than offer soothing satisfaction. Yet the eye and the other senses are in the habit of looking for trouble, picking up perceptions from their environment. The six senses, when untrained, want to get up to mischief and must be contained or trained. So ill will. Similarly, we note that when an object of ill will enters the perceptive field, it is common for perception to find things it dislikes. Things that are ugly, noisy, smelly, distasteful, or repulsive to touch and smell. Thus, the mind makes associations that cause reactions to distasteful contexts. Suppose our neighbor's music is noisy or his garbage smelly. It is easy to react to the perception by thinking this is not right. No sooner have we reacted negatively than our neighbor is reacting back, and we are both feeling ill will, which may last until whether one moves away or dies. The moment we react to a negative exterior impulse and become involved, we lose whatever sense of wise, detached equanimity we had developed. And so we run right back into acting like an untrained animal, like an untrained dog, barking at a shadow. The antidote to ill will is good grounding in the mental training of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. When these four factors are active, we will not make our neighbor our enemy, no matter how badly he behaves. We will not lose our foundation of these four sublime states of metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha. Metta, loving kindness; karuna, compassion; mudita, sympathetic joy; upekkha, equanimity. Now, we will not nourish feelings of anger and ill will. Usually, the causes of hate lie deeper than loud music and stinking garbage. So, we must be mindful in the cultivation of sublime mental states that can arrest and eliminate tendencies towards bad karma. While this is not easy to do, the alternative is to let ourselves fall into the fire of contention that arises from following bad intentions. If this seems difficult, remember that every moment of our lives is a test of equanimity. Loss of equanimity affords ill will, an opportunity to nourish itself and run rampant, which is exactly what ill will wants to do. We know how easy it is to let down our guard, even if only for a moment. But when we do, we open ourselves to reprisals from the outside world. Even worse, if we lose mindfulness, even for a moment, there is no telling what harm we might do to others and indirectly ourselves. Laziness and listlessness, or sloth and torpor. We note when feelings of laziness and listlessness enter the perceptive field, we have all felt the tendency to allow ourselves to fall into the hindrance of sloth and torpor, in which we cannot arouse the necessary force to do anything and tend to fall in a state of inertia or even go to sleep. That's why some meditators, when they sit on the chair or on the floor, sometimes they doze off. The way to combat such a lack of energy is to make an exertion or overcome inertia, to arouse energy when it is lacking through the forceful act of the will. If through a lack of wisdom one's mind becomes dull, one should arouse it through reflecting on such stirring objects as the perils of birth, decay, disease, and death, or the dangers of a lack of constant attentiveness and its possible consequences. So again, appropriate reflection helps to raise energy within, rekindle energy within us, which will snap us out of sloth and torpor. We can also arouse energy through awareness of the suffering of impermanence. Some monks with indolent tendencies are told to avoid overeating and to adjust body postures to maintain an alert mind, or to contemplate the perception of light, or to remain in the open air, and in some cases, to undertake walking meditation on a location where there are sharp-edged stones, or better yet, to engage in conversation about indolence with friends in the Dhamma and cultivate sympathetic joy. Note also that the psychophysical slowing down of the mental processes allows the defilements more time to enter the sense doors and nourish themselves there. Now, this second paragraph here indicates that monks are not very different from us. The monks are full-time practitioners. They also face this same problem, the five hindrances. And in this particular second paragraph, it clearly shows that monks use different tactics to snap themselves out of this sloth and torpor. Okay, to this from the examples given here. Restlessness and worry. We note when feelings of restlessness and worry enter the perceptive field, we have all felt restless, uneasy, nervous, and full of worry or remorse. The antidote for de-relishment here is right mindfulness and the application of wise attention, arousing the mind to calm states of tranquility. Another way is through talking to mature members of the Sangha and after discussion and understanding, practicing the monk's rules and developing healing calmness through noble friendship. The more restlessness there is, the more opportunities the deformers have to stir up nervous energies and create sparks in the mind, which heat up and consume nervous energy. This is why we should cultivate a calm mind at all times. Now, doubt. We note when stirrings of doubt enter the perceptive field, we may have experienced doubts about our Buddhist practice. There are doubts embedded in the mind as residue, or doubts which enter due to outside influences, or lack of confidence, or due to bad influences. Now, once uncertainty has arisen as a spark to ignite doubt, it is hard to establish confidence. This is especially so when we have simultaneously engaged in putting out little or big fires in the mind, some of which will be due to spontaneous combustion because there are piles of fuel lying around inside, unprotected and susceptible to the accelerating breakdown of firmness of mind. This causes increased mental heat, burning energy as confusion increases. Uncertainty lurks in the dark corners of the mind and can be a dangerous enemy because it attacks from inside, where we are vulnerable due to a lack of focus, attention, and concentration. It is much better to train to fight the five hindrances than it is to become a slave of inherent ignorance and unwise inclinations. Now, this is yet another Nivarana Sutta, but from the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 46, Sutta number 40. Monks, these five hindrances are destroyers of sight, vision, and knowledge. They block wisdom. They are on the side of anguish, and they don't lead to extinguishment. What five? Sensual desire, ill will, dullness and drowsiness, restlessness and remorse, and doubt. These five hindrances are destroyers of sight, vision, knowledge. They block wisdom. They are on the side of anguish, and they do not lead to extinguishment. Now, these seven awakening factors are creators of vision and knowledge. They grow wisdom. They are on the side of solace, and they lead to extinguishment. What seven? The awakening factors of mindfulness, investigation of principles or investigation of the Dhamma, I mentioned earlier, from A.P. Pasico right down to the seven awakening factors. In this case, the seventh factor is still investigation. Energy. So this is being energetic, rapture or joy, tranquility or calmness of the body, immersion or samadhi, and equanimity. These seven awakening factors are creators of vision and knowledge. They grow wisdom. They are on the side of solace, and they lead to extinguishment. Now here you have another sutta called the Nivarana. Nivarana means hindrance. Nivarana means no hindrances, or in this title, without obstacles. Monks, sometimes a noble disciple, pays attention, applies the mind, concentrates wholeheartedly, and actively listens to the teaching. At such a time, the five hindrances are absent, and the seven awakening factors are fully developed. This is the key, okay, of how you can, at least for the moment, for that time when you are listening to a Dhamma talk or something, you can practice to get rid of five hindrances and have the seven awakening factors fully developed by paying attention to a talk, applying the mind, concentrating wholeheartedly, actively listening to the teaching. What are the five hindrances that are absent? Sensual desire, ill will, dullness and drowsiness, restlessness and remorse, and doubt. These are the five hindrances that are absent. And what are the seven awakening factors that are fully developed? The awakening factors of mindfulness, investigation of the Dhamma, energy, rapture, tranquility, immersion, and equanimity. Now, the Pali word is quite interesting. Mindfulness, awakening factor of mindfulness, sati, sambojango. Sati as mentioned, which is mindfulness. And then right down to equanimity, upeka, sambojango, upeka. Now, equanimity has some people have a wrong understanding of upeka or equanimity. They think that upeka is like somebody who doesn't care. Equanimity is not doesn't care. Equanimity is what they call being not affected by the craziness of the world, by the pulling and pushing away aspect of our normal existences. So sometimes I will refer to a cartoon like Bino, the dog being cool and calm, equanimity, not affected, not hysterical or hateful in either way. So the person can think on its feet, his or her feet, and do the appropriate thing. So these are the 7 awakening factors. So, and the Buddha ends this sutta by saying, sometimes a noble disciple pays attention, applies the mind, concentrates wholeheartedly, and actively listens to the teaching. At such a time, the 5 hindrances are absent, and the 7 awakening factors are fully developed. Now, when you are in this state, when the 5 hindrances are absent and the 7 awakening factors are fully developed, frequently when a Dhamma teacher will be able to share, especially the 4 noble truths and such like, there is a good possibility that this noble disciple who is in this state with the 7 awakening factors supporting him or her, the person can see deeply and maybe even transform him or herself into an Arya. That means attain the noble state, well on the way to full enlightenment. Satta Bojjhanga, the 7 factors of enlightenment. Now, the Buddha described the path to enlightenment very clearly. And explain how the 7 factors of enlightenment, when brought to maturity, allow the clear seeing necessary for full awakening. All mental factors on the path are concerned with one or more of these factors. And the list is given here with their Pali. Some people shy away from headings like the 7 factors of enlightenment because the word enlightenment intimidates them. And in their hearts, they inherently fear that they are lacking the skill or confidence needed in their practice regarding each one of these 7 factors, to say nothing of all 7. As a result, they flounder in uncertainty, aware within their own minds that they have not established a firm enough base upon which to build an unshakable foundation for practice. The Buddha explains, just as in a peaked house, all rafters whatsoever go to a peak, slope to the peak, join in the peak, and of them all is reckoned chief. Even so, monks, the monk who cultivates and makes much of the 7 factors of wisdom, slopes to Nibbana, inclines to Nibbana, tends to Nibbana. So this is given in the Kutta Gara Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 46, Sutta number 7. If the rafters represent the 7 factors, this means that if you practice the factors as best you can, both individually and simultaneously, making your best effort as you go along, there will be growth and development toward the higher states of concentration. Venerable Piyadasi Mahathera, one of the original founders of the Buddhist Publication Society, or PBS publications, in 1958, in his book on the 7 factors of enlightenment, has written, life according to right understanding of the Buddha is suffering, and that suffering is based on ignorance or avijja. Ignorance is the experience that which is unworthy of experiencing, namely evil. Further, it is the non-perception of the conglomerate nature of the aggregates, non-perception of sense organ and object in their respective and objective natures, non-perception of the emptiness or the relativity of the elements, non-perception of the dominant nature of sense-controlling faculties, non-perception of thusness, the infallibility of the four truths and the five hindrances, because they completely close in, cut off, and obstruct. They hinder the understanding of the way to release from suffering. These five hindrances are sensuality, ill will, idiocy of mind and mental factors, restlessness and flurry, and doubt. And what is the nourishment of these hindrances? The three evil modes of life: bodily, vocal, and mental wrongdoing. This threefold nutriment is in turn nourished by non-restraint of the senses, which is explained by the commentator as the admittance of lust and hate into the sense organs of eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. The above quotation ties together the things we have said above, albeit in somewhat different words. It all seems to fit together, dependent on right understanding of the word of the Buddha in the Pali text. Now, the previous page and this page bears reading again and again. You see how the Venerable, the 1958, has already summarized how one leads to another, and they are all interconnected. The Dhamma as taught interconnected with one aim, that to free us from the five hindrances and move on towards enlightenment. Now, the Venerable Piyadasi Mahathera continues. The nutriment of non-restraint is shown to be the lack of mindfulness and complete awareness. In the context of nutriment, the drifting away of the object, the lapsing of the mind from the knowledge of the lakanas or characteristic of existence, that is impermanence, voidness, and suffering itself, or anicca, anatta, and dukkha. And forgetfulness of the true nature of things is the reason for non-restraint. It is when one does not bear in mind the transience and the other characteristics of things that one allows oneself all kinds of liberties in speech, in deed, and gives rein to full thought imagery of an unskillful kind. Lack of complete awareness is lack of these four. Complete awareness of purpose, of suitability, of result, and of non-delusion. When one does a thing without right purpose, when one looks at things and does actions that do not help the growth of the good, when one does things inimical to improvement, when one forgets the Dhamma, which is the true result of one who strives, when one deludedly lays hold of things, believing them to be pleasant, beautiful, and substantial, when one behaves thus, then too non-restraint is nourished. And below this lack of mindfulness and complete awareness lies unsystematic reflection. The book says this unsystematic reflection is reflection that is of the right cause, that is taking the impermanent as impermanent, painful as pleasure, the soulless as soul, the bad as good. The constant rolling on, that is samsara, is rooted in unsystematic thinking. When unsystematic thinking arises, it fulfills two things: nescience and lust for becoming. Ignorance being present, the origination of the entire mass of suffering comes to be. Thus, a person who is a shallow thinker, like a ship drifting in the wind's wheel, like a herd of cattle swept into the whirlpools of a river, like an ox yoked to a wheel contraption, goes on revolving in the cycle of existence, samsara, or unknowingness. And it is said that the imperfect confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is the condition that develops unsystematic reflection. and imperfect confidence in is due to non-hearing of the true Dhamma. Finally, one does not hear the Dhamma through lack of contact with the wise, through not consorting with the group. Thus, one of Kalyana Mitata, good friendship, appears to be the basic reason for the ills of the world, and conversely, the basis and nutriment of all good is shown to be good friendship. Now, the Bhante here has gone from the top, the ultimate, and slowly analyzed going backwards as to what is causing all the problem, and yet talks about imperfect confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And then we're talking about a person who does not know the Dhamma. Why? Because the person has not heard the Dhamma through lack of contact with the wise. What is the contact of the wise? That is called good friendship, which is Kalyana Mitta, a good friendship. Not just your buddy that go to the Teh stall, but one who is concerned about your welfare in samsara, who shares the Dhamma with you, reminds you to practice, and so on. So here it goes all the way back to good friendship. Now that furnishes one with food of the sublime Dhamma. So Kalyana Mitta will share the Dhamma with you, which in turn produces confidence in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. When one has confidence in the three jewels, there comes into existence profound and systematic thinking, mindfulness, and complete awareness, restraint of the senses, the three good modes of life, the four arousings of mindfulness, or the four foundations of mindfulness, the seven factors of awakening or enlightenment, and deliverance through wisdom, one after another in due order, means the stages of enlightenment. Now, cultivating the seven factors of enlightenment with diligence and energy, we can strive to attain enlightenment. So to read the full analysis by Venerable Piyadasi Thera, here are two links, two URL links that you can use. Okay, past year questions on the 5 hindrances. Now, very commonsensical. What is Pancha Nivarana? Obviously, you would know. You should know the English as well as the Pali in case the question twists this way or that way. Give you the Pali, ask you to choose which one is the English one, or give you the English and ask you to choose which is the Pali. Explain clearly how these Nivarana act as obstacles to a person during the practice of meditation. Now, what are the hindrances that obstruct one from attaining Samadhi? That is already given in some of the commentaries and the suttas that I've quoted. What are the causes that obstruct the meditator from attaining Samadhi or concentration? Hence, a lot of the material I gave earlier is about meditation. Discuss how these hindrances obstruct our path to enlightenment. So, ample notes already given, sutta and commentary. What is the Pali term for 5 hindrances? This is kaca putih lah. Explain how one may eradicate these hindrances with the practice of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Note that some of the past year mentioned, the year is mentioned, S means for senior level, H means for higher. Okay, that's all for this afternoon. As I always summarize, sometimes we get confused with all the Dhamma that's been shared. We should ground ourselves back to this Dhammapada verse 183. Sabba papasa akaranang kusalasa upasampada sacitta paridapadang etang uddana sasana. That we should avoid all evil, do good, purify your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. Notice here, today's sharing, a lot of it has been purify your mind through the reflection or recollecting the Dhamma qualities, as well as understanding what the 5 hindrances are and try to develop the 7 awakening factors. Of course, supported by your observance of the precepts. That is, the precepts talk about avoiding evil, that is the 5 things listed. And of course, doing the opposite, that means cultivating good, that is doing good as in this Dhammapada verse. Okay, that's the end of this afternoon's lecture on MBE on these 2 topics. In the notes, which I'll be sharing later, either today or tomorrow, the PDF, I will have all that I've shown here, minus unnecessary slides, plus the notes from the previous lecturer on this particular topic. So you have the advantage of referring to the sharing from different perspectives, okay, the different approaches. So you get the best of both worlds. Any questions? As I mentioned earlier, the 2 topics today, a lot of it is recollecting the qualities of Dhamma and the working with the hindrances. These are essentially aspects of meditation. So if you have not meditated or gone for retreats, preferably longer than 5 days, then what do you call, especially the hindrances aspect, the 5 days you'll be fighting with your hindrances all the way. Might not be able to break through at all. Okay.
Usually the first few days is like that.
Not even that. The first normally they recommend 10 days, 7 to 10 days meditation. The first 2 to 3 days is for you to unwind, because most people are working, they have their lives and so on. First 3 days is to unwind, and of course together with the unwinding you have the hindrances. Then after that, the next 2 days, you will still be fighting with hindrances, less of your work things bugging you, but sometimes it still creeps in because you have been doing a lot of planning and problem solving and strategizing in your business and so on. So the thinking mind is always there. It will still come and disturb you. And the next 2 days is already calmed down after the first 3 days of relaxation. And the next 2 days, you are still working with the 5 hindrances. It gets weaker and weaker as you put in more effort, more mindfulness. Mindfulness helps to allay the thing. You know what is going on. You know that a certain particular, say, for instance, sensual pleasure hindrance has just appeared in the mind, then you are aware of that. So mindfulness helps you in this practice. If you are drawn into the story, your own mental story, then you add more stories, more what do you call 加油 to your story, then the story get longer, your daydreaming becomes longer, then you are no longer meditating although you are still sitting on the cushion. So these are the challenges.
Yeah, I think the best ones is if you stay in and then you have to turn off your phone. Because if not, that you don't turn off your phone, you end up you touch your phone only.
Good meditation retreats will require you to switch off your phone and surrender your phone to the organizer. Means even suddenly you have the sudden craving to access, hey, what's going on in the world? Then you boot up your phone. So you surrender your phone, you do not have a phone with you. No newspapers, no TV, no radio. You do not even talk to your roommate or to anyone. The only person you talk to is your meditation teacher. That means you're reporting your experiences. They will ask you, what are you experiencing? So you tell all your stories, including your distractions, your sloth and torpor, your falling asleep, and so on. Okay, and the instructor will be able to gauge your progress in fighting or fighting with the 5 hindrances, and how strong is your mindfulness. At the same time, your mindfulness may be growing and growing and growing. Towards the 9 and 10 day or 8, 9, 10 day, you may see some semblance of strong mindfulness, and the 5 hindrances not showing itself that much. You still have, but not that much. That's why some people, 10 days is, so for some people, in fact, for a lot of people, 10 days is not enough. They're talking about 2 weeks, 1 month, some even go for 3 months, this kind of retreat. But for the most working people, you cannot take the kind of leave. And going for 1 day retreat is a total waste of time. 3 days retreat, in my opinion, is good for beginners to know what is going on, but not really meditating. 5 days is so-so, 10 days is at least that much lah. So these are the challenges we have for working people. Okay, so if no further questions, or rather no questions, so we can end today's session. See you next time.